Hi, and welcome here to Lisa's Stamp Studio. My name is Lisa Curcio. Today, I'm going to teach you a fancy fold card that is easy. It has an accordion feature and also a pop-up feature on the one I'm going to demonstrate for you. Now, I'm going to be doing mine for a wedding. I've got another one in your project sheet for Valentine's Day, but I've got two other samples to share with you that are Christmas. The bottom line is you can create this fun fold card for anything. If this is your first time here at my YouTube channel, I'd like to welcome you. And if you're returning, thank you so much for being here. You're going to be able to find a free project sheet linked down in the video description for you below. That's going to lead you over to pictures, cutting dimensions, and the supplies for all the cards I'm going to share with you this evening. And it's completely free, so make sure you grab it when the premiere is over. In addition to that, we love to chat with you. So log into your YouTube account right now, which uses your Gmail address so that you can chat with us here in the live premiere, or perhaps you're watching the replay, you can leave a comment. We come back and we read every single one. I want to give a huge shout out to our YouTube channel members. You're going to notice that they have a crown in front of their name because they've chosen to support Lisa's Stamp Studio here on YouTube. For just 99 cents a month, they're going to get custom badges, custom emojis, and the opportunity to buy exclusive merchandise from us. If you'd love to join us, we would love to have you. You can find all the information by clicking the join button right underneath today's video. As a quick reminder, you're going to find the Stampin' Up! Products I'm using in my online store at lisastampstudio.com. Now, I am going to be using some affiliate products as well, and I'll point those out to you during the video, but I want to make sure that you know where to find them. They're on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites, and scroll through. There's quite a bit there for you. All right, we're ready. Let's get started. This card is going to be comprised of two pieces. This is going to be the base. It is your standard A2, 5.5 by 8.5. I did score it in half at 4 1/4 before we got started. I'm just going to make sure those ends are nice and even, checking here and here. I'm going to go over it with my bone folder. Whenever you're making a fancy fold card, you want to make sure that all your score lines are well enforced. While we have this flat, is now the time to decorate it. I'm going to bring in some scratch paper underneath me because we're going to be using Versamark ink to create a very subtle background. Now, Versamark ink is typically used for heat embossing, which we'll do also tonight. But I also love it for tone-on-tone backgrounds. So if you don't have the right designer series paper or you don't want to use designer series paper, look at your stamp set. I've pulled out a flower image, and this is one of my favorite brand new bundles. It's called Hearts of Elegance. It's an online exclusive product, so you won't find it in any of the catalogs. Because it's an online exclusive, you're going to want to shop while the supply is good. This is going to be the only Valentine's set that Stampin' Up! Is going to offer this season that's coming up. It has coordinating dies, and check this out. Look how abundant they are. You're going to love this. I used this for Valentine's Day for the project inside your project sheet, but tonight we're going to make a wedding card with it. I'm using that flower, and I'm going to ink it up in the Versamark ink. Make sure your work surface underneath you is protected. And we're going to stamp, and we're going to create a random background. How close or how far apart you put these is entirely up to you. Now, you might hear that little bit of a pull when I lift up on the stamp, and that's because Versamark ink is very sticky, and it's intended to be so that you have time to place embossing powder over it. But if you give it just a little extra time to dry, you're going to get that beautiful, subtle background. And this is effortless. The newest of Stamper can create this card. We're going to make sure, too, that we have images hanging outside the parameters of the cardstock so that it looks intentional and more like pattern paper. Now we're going to set this aside. It's going to need about a minute or so to dry, and we're going to work on the components that are going to go on top of here. I took the liberty of using those dies and die cutting a pretty and pink heart. Isn't this beautiful? Look at that stitch border, so effortless to create. On top of here is where we're going to create a collage and, of course, our greeting. Coming back here to the card base, you're going to want to attach the heart first for placement. So I'm going to flip that upside down. I'm grabbing my full-size dimensionals. I'm going to make sure that these are well balanced on the back of this heart. This is sizable, as you can see. I want to make sure that this is going to hold up well through mailing in the mail meter at the post office, which has rollers in it. Once those are secure, I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool with that paper piercing tool attachment to remove the paper backings. Once those are removed, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach that here to the front center of the card. For my next step, I wanted a greeting, and since I was going to make this for a wedding versus Valentine's Day, I didn't find something in here that was totally appropriate for both the inside and the outside, but I did love this for the outside of my wedding card. Before you joined me, I pulled out one of my favorite die sets. This is called Stylus Shapes, and you're going to see that there's graduating sizes of the different shapes here. I die cut this larger banner here from basic white cardstock, and this is where I'm going to stamp the outside greeting. I'm going to be using the Melon Mambo ink, and this is one of the things I love about Stampin' Up! Products is the color coordination. The photopolymer stamp is going to make it easy to see where you're going, so I'm going to go ahead and ink that up in the Melon Mambo ink, and then this now is going to get stamped right here in the center of the banner. Coming back here to the card base, you can see the beautiful color coordination between the cardstock and the ink pads. I'm going to adhere this to the heart, but I decided I wanted to do this flat. For that, I'm going to be using the Precision Glue Press. This is one of those items that's going to be in my craft room favorites on my websites. Absolutely love it because I have arthritic hands and squeezing a glue bottle is really challenging for me. I've added glue about 3/4 of this piece of cardstock here, and I'm leaving this end open. Now that's going to give me an area to decorate. I've got some scrap basic white cardstock here, and I'm going to come back with that same flower image that we used on the background. I did clean it off camera because you never want to take Versamark into one of your dye-based ink pads. So I'm going to travel and ink that up. Here's a tip for you. Make sure you travel and pick up ink from everywhere. We all have a habit of going only to the center, and you'll notice that sometimes those outside edges are nice and dark for you to use. I'm coming now over to Pretty in Pink. That is the same color as the heart here that we die cut. Just clean the stamp once again, and I'm going to ink this up as well. And we're going to do 2 of these for this card. On another piece of paper, while I still have the Melon Mambo ink out, I pulled out that beautiful detailed heart that's from that stamp set. Now you might be wondering why the stamp looks like it's a light pink color. Whenever you're using darker pigmented colors on your photopolymer stamps, they're going to have a tendency to want to keep that hue of the color on the photopolymer or it stains it. Just make sure you clean it really well and it's safe to use in other colors. You'll recall that there were dies for these, and I went ahead and I die cut those ahead of time just to save a little bit of time. Let's go ahead and push those up and out of the way, and let's do a little bit more stamping. On the other half of this piece of cardstock is where we're going to do a little bit of heat embossing. I always prepare the surface when I'm heat embossing, and I'm using the Embossing Buddy. This is part of the Embossing Editions Toolkit, and I love this because you're going to get several components that you're going to use when you're heat embossing. There's an anti-static powder in the bag that prevents embossing powder from statically sticking where you haven't placed Versamark ink. I keep my embossing powders in a snap lid container. That means in case I drop it, it's good to go. It's not going to spill everywhere. This has about 4 bottles of Wow Metallics embossing powder in it, and I personally like to use a plastic spoon. I keep 1 for each color, have that open and nearby. We're going to come back to that Versamark ink now, and this time I've pulled out the 3-leaf flower from that stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it here. Now I know you're not going to be able to see it because Versamark ink on white paper is virtually invisible. Make sure you cover up your ink pad before you start doing some sprinkling. The tidy tray you see here is part of the Embossing Editions Toolkit, which I absolutely love, and you can see by using the spoon, I'm able to evenly and broadly cover those stamped images. Make sure you move your embossing powder out of the way, and then using the reversible tweezers that come in that kit, we are going to heat emboss this. When I turn the gun on, it's going to be a little bit loud, so I want to talk you through a few things before we get going. The one reason I love the heat tool with Stampin' Up! Is because the tip is encased, which means once the gun gets hot, it's going to retain its heat, which means if you're doing multiple images for multiple cards, it can go very rapidly. It has a collapsible stand, which is fantastic for traveling, and of course, then it sits up on your work surface. Make sure you do not cover the vents with your hand. Just like a blow dryer, it's going to need that ventilation. There are 2 speeds. There is a 1 and a 2 underneath here. I know it's hard to see. 1 is a nice low speed, great for vellum or just drying watercolor paper. And then speed 2 would be for things that need more heat embossing or setting. We're going to turn this on now to speed 2. I'm going to let the gun get hot for a few seconds, and holding the reversible tweezers, I'm going to work closely to the paper, keeping the gun moving. Again, as I said, the gun will retain its heat and you'll be able to do multiple images over and over very, very quickly. But the heat tool is melting the powder. Do you see how it's starting to turn a metallic gold? And I'm just going to keep the gun moving. You can scorch the paper, so keep in mind you want to make sure that you're working closely, but that the gun is continuing to move. You'll know that the heat embossing is finished when it's raised and foily. Now, I did do a second set of these before you joined me. You'll recall that we had the flowers and the heart here, and here are the leaves that I did heat emboss with you, and I've die cut ahead of time. In addition to that, I took this beautiful detailed die with pretty and pink cardstock, and I die cut one of those. And then I couldn't help myself. I had to bring in some gold foil because I love shimmer, and I used that with the smaller heart that was here. And then I did it one more time, but this time with designer series paper. Look how pretty that paper is. Specialty paper with gold foil accents. Like almost all the Stampin' Up! Designer series papers, they are double-sided to give you lots of options. We're going to use a little bit more of that paper in just a moment. So let's go ahead and let's push these off to the side. We're going to come back here to the front of the card. And now what we're going to do is create the collage that we want. I'm going to recommend that you lay it out first, because if you're like me and you get really excited about where things are going, sometimes you start sticking it down and it ends up not fitting perfectly. Now, once you have it in place, the easiest thing to do is to start at the top, because we can tuck the other ones as well. I've just placed the dimensional on the back side, and once again, I'm just going to kind of mimic that because I want to make sure I'm not covering up that greeting. One dimensional is going to allow you to tuck the pieces that you need. So I'm going to slide this one out and slide this one out, and we'll add dimensionals now to the center back of these as well. Now you might be wondering if that's going to be enough stability, and if not, we can do card surgery, and I'll show you what that means in just a minute. So you're just going to pivot these and decide which way you want them to go, and I'm going to put one here, and then we'll slide the other one up and underneath here as well. By putting the one dimensional, it allows you a lot of opportunity to move the pieces as you're creating the collage. I'm going to do the exact same thing now with the leaves. Make sure that you lay them out first so that you have an idea on where you want to place them. So I've got two of the larger 3 leaves that are going to be going here, and then I have the single leaves which I will pair next to them. Now you can see that part of this is going to fall here on the cardstock and part on the heart, and there's an elevation difference. So I'm really going to work with liquid glue first. I'm going to bring in the reversible tweezers, and I love these. These are a craft room favorite because they extend my reach for these little tiny pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tuck this up underneath here where I know I've placed the liquid glue from about half down. Don't worry about this. We can come back to that. We're going to do the same thing now with this piece. So I'm going to add a little bit more here near the bottom. Look how thin that precision glue press gets out your glue. And if you're like me and you make a mess with liquid glue, that thing is a real game changer. And then let's come down here and let's work on this one as well. Remember to tip and pivot your images because they're going to add some visual interest, and it's going to allow you to make sure you can navigate away from other elements like the greeting in this case. This one here is actually going to get attached to the card base itself. So I'm going to be a little bit more generous with that liquid glue here. And then we're going to slide this one up underneath here. The glue dries very, very quickly, and I absolutely love it that it dries clear. Now, you're going to notice that this has a precision tip on it. You get 2 different tips. One's a little bit wider than this one. And I love that the bottles are refillable with any liquid glue that you'd like. It has a silicone stand. So if you go ahead and you place this down inside of here, you're going to see that it creates an airtight seal between the needle tip and the stand, which means you can leave this out without worrying about it clogging. If you want to cap it, you're going to go ahead and use that beautiful decorative needle tip and go ahead and cap your bottle. I love this stand because it fits very, very small profile on my work surface. Now we're going to work in some of these little areas that I think need to be stabilized for the envelope. I'm going to bring in my mini dimensionals, and I am actually going to pull off the paper backing right here on the paper that they're on. And I'm using my take your pick tool, kind of like my third hand. This is card surgery. I'm going to tuck this up underneath it where I know it cannot be seen. And now this piece is stabilized. If you need to do that in another spot, you can go ahead and do that now, but I think these are really well set. These adhesive backed heart sequins are all part of the same bundle and suite of products with marbled elegance, and I love them because look at how flat they are, which means no extra postage. I'm going to go ahead and remove the sleeve that they came in. I'm going to work with the small ones. I'm going to place one down here and another one close by it. And then I'm going to take one more and I'm going to gravitate your eye up towards the greeting. Now you might be wondering if this greeting is going to sag. And if you're concerned about that, we're going to do a little bit more card surgery. So just remove that paper backing from your dimensional and then pick up your dimensional piece. And again, we are going to tuck it up underneath it. I am very careful to make sure that I'm actually not bending the cardstock. I'm just placing it and lifting it up to tuck that behind. Now that the outside is done, let's work on the Fancy Fold Accordion and Pop-Up for this fun fold feature. I'm using my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, which I absolutely love because it includes both the scoring and the cutting blade. They stay on the track and they navigate down and up out of the way so you never have to take them off. That clear guide is a champ for diagonal cuts as well. It extends well past 17 inches so that if you're a scrapbooker, we've got you covered. There's a protective film over the top so you never have to worry about the numbers rubbing off. This beautiful piece of designer series paper is from Marbled Elegance, and again, double-sided. This is the same piece that we use as a scrap to make that one heart. I am going to use it with the flowers up. We're going to do some very simple score lines. The first one is going to start at 2 inches. So I'm going to make sure we're nice and straight here across the ledge, and I'm lining up at the 2-inch mark, and we are going to score. We're going to move over now to 3 inches, and we're going to score, and then 4 inches, and we're going to score, 5 inches, 6 inches, opening up the arm, because we're going to go in another inch increment, so 7 inches, and the last one is going to be at 8 inches. So we have 2 inches now on either side. Now I know it's going to be very difficult to see the score line, so I just want you to follow with me next. The first fold, this first 2 inch, is going to be what we call a mountain fold. So this is going to come to a peak. So I'm matching up the top and bottom because sometimes we don't score perfectly, do we? And you're going to go over it with your bone folder. Now this is where the accordion comes in. So this was a mountain. This one is going to be a valley fold, which means it's going to go down and then mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, all the way across. So you're just going to create that accordion. When you're all finished, you should have all your creases together. I'm going to go over them with my bone folder. Remember, anytime you do a fancy fold, you want those nice reinforced creases. When you open it, you're going to have this. We're going to come to the base of the card, and I want to give you some tips about placing this piece inside. Since my pattern paper does not have a direction, it really doesn't matter. But if yours does, be cognizant of that when you're putting this inside. You can use adhesive, but I found that liquid glue is a lot easier, and I found that doing it half at a time really works well. So I'm going to collapse it, and I'm going to place my liquid glue right around the outside perimeter. The other reason I love the glue press is because it comes out nice and thin, and I don't have to worry about it oozing too far outside the edges. I'm looking now to create that equal border at the top and the 2 sides of this piece of paper, and we're going to press that in place. This piece now is going to go here near the bottom. By doing them independently, I find that I get a nice border. The other option is to collapse your accordion, place your adhesive or glue, and close it. But sometimes you'll notice it doesn't come out just right. So if you're going to do that, know it's an experiment and give it a try and see which way works best for you. I'm going to use that precision glue press once again around the outside border here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this to make it easy for my hand, and I'm going to stretch this because remember it's an accordion, and I'm going to look here at the top and the sides to try to make these as even as I possibly can to mimic this side. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and give it a good press and place. You're going to pull these forward, and then these are going to collapse like an accordion, and just give it a good little push with your hand so that when you open it now, it's going to do this. Now these incredible spots are perfect for a pop-up. Now can you leave it the way it is and use that gorgeous paper? Absolutely. But I want to give you some more tips. Remember this die cut piece that we used? We're going to go ahead and add it to one of the steps. And I like to go ahead and make sure I'm going to place them all out first to get an idea of pattern. Very important. Remember that when this closes, you want to make sure your pieces don't extend past the card. Otherwise it will not fit in your envelope. So this one specifically, I'm going to make sure that I put all my liquid glue on the one side, and I'm going to tip this heart to make sure it's going to fit inside the envelope. So you're going to notice that I'm pinching it here between the pleats to secure it in place. Once the heart has been secured, you can add additional features, and that's what I've got the gold foil heart for. I've grabbed the reversible tweezers once again, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue here to the back. And now this time I can actually gravitate this heart to be in a different direction because it's a lot smaller than the one next to it. So I'm just going to kind of pivot that. I'm going to give that a good push so that the glue can set. Now we have other areas here we can decorate, so I'm going to go a little bit further. My next one was the heart that we did with the filigree on it, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Once again, the size of your heart is going to make a big difference about where you're going to place it because you're going to have to be able to close the card. Looking to create a focal point, I'm working this one more in the center, and I'm bringing the bottom of the heart near the crease, but not too far over the top because I don't want it to bend. Last but not least, I have the one here with the designer series paper. Come up with a plan before you stick it down because I always found that that worked better for me. So let's work with some liquid glue here on this one side so that we can tuck it a little bit behind it. No two cards are exactly alike, so you're going to notice that this one is slightly different than the one that's inside your project sheet. But any elements can be used here. Even think of birthday cards with balloons or small character pieces. Here at the bottom is the perfect place for you to write and sign. And because the Hearts of Elegance didn't really have the appropriate wedding greeting, I went ahead and I pulled out Classic Wedding. This is another new online exclusive. I just used it recently in another video if you've watched, but I love this and I love the greetings. So just to save a little bit of time, I stamped that on a piece of basic white cardstock, and we're going to go ahead and just add our liquid glue around the outside perimeter here as well. This is going to go here, giving you plenty of room to write and sign. If you want to include a gift card for a wedding gift or a holiday gift or a birthday, you can do so by adding a glue dot. You're going to notice that the first score line is going to be very close here to the top of the card. So make sure that you tuck it all the way down before you collapse the card. The last step for this card was to add a little bit of embellishment to play up those beautiful pop-up images. This suite includes gold twisted thread that is absolutely stunning. And I went ahead and I made a small bow ahead of time out of that thread. I'm going to grab a glue dot. Now you can use liquid glue if you'd like. I'm going to place the knot to the bow right on top of the glue dot. Now because this is a very delicate type of thread, I'm going to use my take your pick tool to lift it up because I don't want to untie it. Make sure that all the excess glue dot is formed to the back where it's not going to be exposed from the front so that it's not sticky and the card will open. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach that now here to that pretty and pink heart. And then last but not least, I couldn't resist adding a few more of these heart embellishments. I'm going to use one of the larger ones here near the top. I'm going to use a small one up here on an angle. And then finally, we'll use one of the medium ones. And we can place that down here inside one of the pleats. I love this because you can get your fingers behind those accordion pleats really easily to decorate your card. Now, when it's all finished, you're going to collapse these pieces and the card is going to close. It will fit inside an A2 envelope. This does not require extra postage because we use designer series paper. But wait until you see some other ideas I have for you. Let me share those with you now. My next card is going to be using the Decorative Trees bundle, the stamp sets and the coordinating dies. Again, very, very abundant, and a good tree die and stamp set never goes out of style. It's timeless for tradition. And here's the card I created. Unlike this one, you're going to notice that it's portrait, which means it's going up and down versus horizontal. And on the background, I could not resist adding in those Painted Trees 3D embossing folder. Look how dynamic that folder is. Really pretty and a very simple color palette. Lots of Wink of Stella down on the snow, as well as the ornaments and the star. When you open this one, you're going to notice that the accordion fold is actually vertical versus this one that's horizontal. That gave me extra room here to add a very simple embellishment that I used with the dies and more Wink of Stella. Left that pretty paper to do all the work without the pop-up as a great option versus this one. And of course, an area here to write and sign. But I have one more for you. This one uses the More Than Autumn bundle, stamps and coordinating dies. It's one of my favorites because I don't know about you, who doesn't love a great latte or peppermint spice eggnog. You're gonna love this because you can build your own custom phrases with this as well as with the dies. And here is the card I created for you. Once again, this is a portrait formation. Now there's one thing about this I want to point out to you. Do you notice the circle and the white behind it? If you're like me and you have the circle die with the holes, which by the way, I want to show you, it comes from Everyday Details. Again, cascading sizes, circles, squares, and some borders. But if you don't have the right solid circle die, to add a piece of white layered paper behind it, die cut two, one from the red and one from the white, and simply pivot the circles so that the solid white area of this opening falls behind here. So this is actually two pieces put together to give you that full layer of white underneath. This time I did a little bit of coloring with the alcohol-based Stampin' Blends markers. These all have dies, added some peppermint embellishments, and this says, this calls for hot cocoa and peppermint. I added white panels here. You're going to notice this whole insert is white versus designer series paper like I used on these. So I added strips of designer series paper here, great for your scraps. Add a little bit of stamped image and a little bit of embellishment, plenty of room to write and sign. When this one closes, you're going to notice it's a little bit thicker than this one that uses designer series paper, and of course the first one we did together. This one will probably require a little extra postage, but I wanted to be able to share with you how you can use cardstock for the actual accordion insert versus designer series paper if you choose. Lots of great options for you today. As always, I would love to know your favorites. Pop down right now in the comments and let me know. Will you be making your card horizontal or vertical? What will you be creating it for? Will it be for a wedding, for a holiday, for a birthday? Let me know. Your feedback is so important for me as I design. I use your input to help create cards that you want to see. Don't forget to grab that free project sheet that's linked down in the video description for you below so you get all the details on all three of these cards. And if you love exclusive ideas, you're going to love Stamp Studio membership. Every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time coming right to your inbox, you're going to get an exclusive project designed by me. For just $5 a month, that tutorial will come right to your inbox. These projects are not shared anywhere else. They are specifically for our members. And if you like a little bit more, you are going to love Level 2. For just $10 a month, you'll get everything in Level 1, plus you'll get a monthly fun fold card idea. In addition to that, you'll get a discount for my PDF tutorial library, and everybody in Level 2 is entered into a random product giveaway every single month. All the details can be found on my website in the red menu bar under Memberships. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would hope you do so by clicking that subscribe button below. Hit the bell icon next to it and the word all, and then YouTube will send you reminders when I have new content here to share with you. When you're over on my website, if you want to stay in the know about promotions, sales, and of course everything happening here at Lisa's Stamp Studio, scroll to the bottom of my website and fill out that little form so I can add you to my free weekly e-newsletter. In addition to all of that, you'll get added inspiration every single week. Do me a favor, if you have enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up here on YouTube, which is a like. It helps me immensely. This is our last video until after Christmas for this year, so I want to take a moment and say Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope that you have all had a blessed and healthy and safe year, and I hope that the new year will bring us much more of the same. Thank you so much for following me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.